What's the main thing to watch for this spring training? And why is it Jacob Degrom's health? We'll tell you what to watch for this spring training heading into your fantasy drafts on this action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my co-host and my brother, Matthew Ane.
Yo.
You could find us on all social media platforms and podcasting apps. Just search for Locked On Fantasy Baseball and we'll be there. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, especially on YouTube, because we love to talk fantasy baseball with you. On today's podcast, we're talking about players you must keep your eye on this spring training heading into your fantasy drafts. We definitely just want to make sure you guys understand there's certain players that, if you're watching them and, they might be moving up and down your fantasy draft boards as well as ours, and we just want to keep you guys in the loop. But as we mentioned at the beginning, Matt, who are we talking about first here, brother?
I mean, we might as well not bury the lead here and talk about Mr. Jacob Degrom. We all know the story of what's going on with Degrom. He's a little hurt right now, and it's just the same thing. Different team, different year, and it's starting to become a little annoying because we want to see him. We want to see him play a full season because we know when he does, he's the best player in baseball and best pitcher in baseball, and it's really just like frustrating at this point. And I'm trying to pull up what his injury is. Do you know off the top of your head?
It's left side soreness.
Right.
Left side soreness.
So it's something you never want to see with a pitcher, especially as they're getting ramped up, or anybody as a professional athlete. Soft tissue issues. It's one of those things that can come back and nag you down the line, and therefore you're ending up with, problems throughout the year, which is something that's been a pattern for him. He's starting to become a phalanges guy, an injury-prone guy. That's my joke about it. And, it's something that's really concerning for me. I had to drop him down. I still have him in my top 15, but I don't have him as in my top 10 anymore. I have him all the way down at 14 now. And I think that's where I'm pretty much going to feel comfortable drafting him as more of my pitcher too. If you have the cojones to draft him as your pitcher one, God bless you. I don't blame you. Me personally, I'm just a little bit more on that conservative side due to the fact that I don't feel like dealing with that kind of injury prone player right now, that flanges guy as my pitcher one. It's like drafting Kershaw as my pitcher one right now. It's just, I built his injuries into his price. For me, it's going to be the same thing with Degrom.
Yeah, Jacob Degrom, as Matt said, definitely a flanges guy. He's been injured every year of the last 4 years, from 2022 back to 2018. Last year was the stress reaction in the right shoulder. 2021 tightness in his forearm. 2019 sore elbow. 2018 hyperextended right elbow. So a lot of arm injuries here for Degrom over the last few years. But as Matt said, when he's healthy, he's the best pitcher in fantasy and baseball in general. We don't really need to remind you of Degrom's numbers because they're just absolutely dominant when he's on the field. I currently still have Degrom in my top 5 starting pitchers. I moved Garrett Cole over him recently, so I have Degrom at 4. I just think the thing is, he's an SP1. No matter how you look at it, I just think you have to. You're not going to get any other better deal on him because right now he's coming off the board, 30th overall, number 5 starting pitcher. So if you want Degrom, you have to take him as your ace. And I think he's going to give you ace-like numbers while he's out there. It's just how many innings is he actually going to give you? But, he still throws 99 miles an hour. And I mean, just got to stay on the field with this guy. So moving on, though, let's talk about somebody that Matt and I have talked about a bunch already. And we're just going to mention it again. And that's a nasty Nestor Cortes. And, the thing with nasty is he has that grade 2 hamstring strain going on. He's not going to pitch in the WBC, which is a good thing. He he's been throwing over the last few days a little bit, so that's a good sign to see with Nasty. And I currently have him ranked. Let's see. I haven't moved him down yet due to the injury, so I have him at 19. Kind of want to see, this is why we're talking about him. I kind of want to see what he does during spring training. I want to see what the process is, the mindset, what the Yankees say. And if he's going to be back in the second week, third week, you could afford to miss a couple of starts from Nasty as long as you get him down the stretch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Nestor is one of those guys. It's like, I hope he's healthy, but he is worrying me again. Same thing with Degrom. It's a soft tissue issue. And, again, it's going to reappear. And I don't mean to reiterate. It's the same argument. Go back and listen to what I said about Degrom in terms of that soft tissue issue. So I'm building it into his draft price now, unless I hear something different from now to then. If you're having your draft tomorrow, I moved him down from 19 where I had him all the way down to 27. I just don't feel right drafting him that high anymore, just due to the fact he'll be more of an SP3, where I'd much rather take him right now. And to be honest, when he decides to be healthy again, he's going to be a stud, and then that's a great SP3. But if he doesn't on the other side and he ends up having this long terms or setbacks, that's where you're just like, I'm good. But let's move on here to our last guy here before a break. And that's Mr. Blake Snell. Blake Snell is, one of our favorites. We talk about him all the time. Blake is just one of those guys. We want to see if he's throwing the changeup. Let's see if he's playing with it again. God, I hope not, because if he's throwing that changeup, it makes me very scary, and that's going to affect where I put him in my draft price, where I rank him right now. And that's scary, because right now I have him pretty high. Like, I have him at 26, whereas, if he's not throwing that changeup right now, I'm probably moving him up to probably 24, 23, giving him a little bit of a pump up. And, I'd be pretty excited to see. I want to see if he adds anything. I want to see if his velocity's up, down, left, right, upside down. I don't know. But let's see what happens. Maybe even if he is throwing the changeup, maybe it's actually better and he finally mastered it after like umpteen years. Let's just take a look and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much same argument from, Matt that I have. It's really about if he's going to throw that changeup or not. Blake Snell's absolutely dominant when he's out there. I'm actually going to read you off Blake Snell's last 16 starts last year. It was from July 1st, from September 27th. Once again, 16 starts, 86 innings, 127 Ks, a 2.60 ERA. Batters hit 212 off of him. And that whip was well under 1. It was about a 0.8 something or another. And Blake Snell just shows right there. He stopped throwing that changeup around that time that streak started, and that's all it is with him. I think he's a great SP3 and a like top tier SP4. I have Blake Snell ranked at 32, so I'm comfortable with him as my SP3. I would prefer him as my SP4. But the thing to watch for in spring training, once again, to not to beat a dead horse, but watch to see if he's throwing that changeup and see what he says in interviews. Because I know last year they asked him at the beginning of the year, "Hey Blake, are you still going to throw that changeup?" And he's like, "Of course. Why would I not throw my changeup?" And then everyone just face palms and they're like, "Oh God, this guy, he doesn't want to know what like do what's successful, do what you're good at, as anything in life goes, But with that being said, before we move on to our next segment, which we feature some hitters, if you're like me, you have a full-time job, you like to go to the gym sometimes, but you need to have a quick snack that isn't high in calories, but hey, still tastes great, you got to try Built Bar. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, but these bars taste delicious while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better is that they're healthy for you. Built Bars only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Oh boy, if you need to sneak that protein into your diet, Built Bar is the way to go. They come in unbelievable flavors like cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And now you don't even need to wait around to get a box, because for years we've been talking about you only being able to get your Built Bars at Built.com. But guess what? Now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and get you a box or 2 or 3 today. But let's move into our, our little hitter segment here. And, who else do you talk about but Fernando Tatis Jr., right? The thing is he's been out there. He's been working out. I've seen video of him with Juan Soto. The big news is that he's probably going to be strictly playing right field from what I've seen and what I've heard. Xander Bogaerts slides into that shortstop position, and man, Tatis, when he is Tatis, he's the man. He could be the best player in fantasy baseball. He's working his way back from, that wrist surgery. I believe he had a shoulder issue. He had, the suspension with the PEDs. So, there's a lot of stuff to watch here with Tatis this spring training. But let's go back to that stellar 2021. 130 games, 478 at-bats, 99 runs, 31 doubles, 42 bombs, 97 RBIs, 25 steals, and a 282 batting average. I mean, at this point, when you see those numbers, if Tatis can come back and he can give you 80% of that, I mean, he's an absolute monster. Right now, he is coming off the board as the 17th player overall. His average pick, though, is around 19.6. So I think that's a great pick. If you can get Tatis in your second round and pair him with a Julio, with an Aaron Judge, with a Mookie Betts, just any of those guys, he makes a second great player on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for Fernando Tatis to return to baseball. Dom, you didn't say when his date was to return from suspension, right? Because I have it if you don't.
I believe it's April 20th. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is. So April 20th isn't a long.
I'm mad I know that off the top of my head.
That's because you're a fiend. Dom loves Fernando Tatis. Love the guy. So like Fernando is going to be returning on April 20th, which now is a hell of a lot better than it was if they didn't make the playoffs and go so deep, because then he wouldn't be playing till about the end of May, June. So like it's only a 20-day lease, which is 3 weeks in fantasy baseball. I'm being bullish. I'm actually drafting him and on the turn at the second pick. If I can snag him anytime in the second round, I'm really on it. I don't really care. The kid could be the best player in baseball if he really just, get himself out of the way and just be a professional and being a man instead of getting in trouble and getting in a motorcycle accident when he shouldn't be riding a motorcycle or being just a bozo or taking PEDs. Like those are the things that's frustrating about a young kid. So, other than that, I'm drafting him with confidence until I hear otherwise. I love this kid. Let's move on here to Mr. Starling Marte. Marte actually in the offseason had muscle repaired in his surgery to have some things cleaned up and whatnot. He only played about he only had I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong tab here. He only had 466 at bats last year, which is about 100 shy. So he did miss some games. In that time, though, he did have a good year, even with missing 100 at bats at least. In that time, he had 76 runs, 16 home runs, 63 ribbies, 18 stolen bases, and batted .292. Now, that's a pretty good year. It's not like the stalwart season we saw, a few years ago, like in 2021, when he had 27 home runs and 47 stolen bases. I don't think we're ever going to get back to that. I think we're going to be more on like this normal kind of pathway here, probably with 100 more at bats. You see like 2 more home runs, maybe 10 more ribbies, and maybe 20 more runs. And that batting average is going to be great. And I don't know what the stolen bases are going to look like. I don't think we're going to see, 30 stolen bases anymore. I don't think we're going to see 25, maybe able to get up there to 20. I think that, they're going to not jeopardize him anymore, since that lineup is so good, and they're just going to, preserve his talent.
Yeah, the thing with Starling Marte, as Matt mentioned, is he got that core muscle surgery, and that's really scaring me. From what I've heard, the Mets are taking it very, very slow with him. And, it's just he had the procedure done on his groin last year. So, at 34 years old, going through all these surgeries and stuff like that is very concerning to me. I had him ranked super, super high before, I knew about the core muscle thing. But I've actually moved him down my outfield rankings all the way down to 27. And right now, current ADP has Starling Marte going at, I believe it is the number... Oh, hold on. I just had him here and I lost him. Jesus. Bear with me. Well, once again, the thing with Marte is at 34 years old, he's probably, as Matt said, not going to run as much. The batting average probably will be there. You don't really lose that kind of skill, and he's a career 290 hitter. On the Mets, the runs and the RBIs might be good, but he's not really a power guy. He hasn't hit over 16 home runs since 2020. So I just wouldn't currently draft Marte where he is going, which is actually the 19th outfielder, pick 71 overall. I'm not really gonna, bury my flag there with Starling Marte. But moving on, we have our next guy here, who is actually somebody very interesting, and that's Wander Franco. The reason that you have to watch Wander Franco was number one prospect for a 2 year straight, I believe, and he's been very, very underwhelming so far. Last year, read off his stats as a 21-year-old. It was 83 games, 46 runs, 6 home runs, 33 RBIs, 8 steals, and he had 277. The thing with Wander is he's such a great eye, and he's such a great hitter overall. And last year in those 83 games, he walked 26 times, and he only struck out 33. I think Wander Franco could be a 300 batting average guy with 20 bombs, maybe 20 steals, and very good counting stats as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how he looks coming into spring training. He was dealing with a couple injuries last year, and let's see where I currently have Wander ranked at shortstop. And there's such a deep shortstop class this year. I currently have Wander as my number 12 shortstop, and I think it's an absolute bargain. As far as ADP goes, he's coming off the board as number 13 shortstop, pick 86. I'll take that all day. If you miss out on some of the big names, the top, 8 to 10 shortstops, right after that, if you want to sit a little bit, wait to get him around pick 100, that's a deal for Wander Franco.
Yeah, I mean, I love Wander. I think he can get it together. You don't just do what he did in the minors and not translate. I mean, look at what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did for 2 years. First 2 years in the league, he showed what he possibly can do, but then took some time to get there. So I think maybe this is that third year breakout, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. I have Wander right now at shortstop as my number 10. And that's bouncing back and forth. It's more like a 10A, 10B. It's like him and Pena. I think that Wander is going to be great. Outside of that, I mean, you can't really ask for more from the kid. He steals bases. He hits for average. Hopefully he gets into that man body and starts hitting power, and, kid could be a 5-tool guy. So, I'm really excited for him. But let's move on here. We have some wonderful things we have to talk about here, and we have our I'm sorry, guys. Before we move on to that, we have to touch a little before we touch on the White Sox.
Geez, you're okay over there?
You got the wrong notes in here for me. It's all good. Before we move on here, we got to talk about our buddy Lindsay. Lindsay is a great podcast host. He was on here last week talking prospects. He's on it. He has his own podcast, Locked On Prospects. Guy is an encyclopedia of knowledge, and he's absolutely incredible at what he does. If you want to learn more depth and knowledge about these prospects, definitely take a listen to him. But I also got somebody else wonderful to talk about, and that's FanDuel. FanDuel is awesome. Here at Locked On, we're super excited about our new sports betting partner, FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download FanDuel Now Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line, points scored, and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine bets for a chance for a bigger payout with same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when your first bet doesn't hit at FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Got that part nailed. But, let's move on. Yeah, man, I love me. Anyway, hold on, let me just write this. 18. So we got somebody great we want to talk about. These are guys more questionable names, that people that you're like, okay, what do we do here? These are late in the drafts and whatnot. So I'm really excited to talk about Mr. Cody Bellinger. It's funny enough, but like everybody's probably out on him and whatnot, but the guy's going for an absolute steal. He's almost free 99 in almost every draft. And you know what? There's a lot of upside. The kid was one of the best players in baseball during his prime, and I don't think he's too far from it. I just think he's had a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of things going on in his life and whatever, but he's 27 years old. So, I mean, I'm hoping that he hasn't fallen off the planet, but also he's also free 99. So it's somebody that we want to see what he could do in the spring. Because, I mean, last year was very underwhelming with, 504 plate appearances, 70 runs. At bats, 19 home runs, 68 ribbies, 14 stolen bases, and batted 210, which is absolutely putrid. In 2021, he had a shortened season because he was, I think, suspended or hurt. Which one was it, Dom?
He was hurt.
Hurt,
He
right?
was banged up. I don't know what the injury was, but yeah, he was banged up.
Right. So he had 315 at bats. He had 39 runs. He had 10 home runs, 36 ribbies, 3 stolen bases, and batted a terrible 165. In 2020, that shortened season, he didn't have a great year either. He batted 239. But then in 2019, he had a phenomenal year. He batted 305. He had 121 runs. He had 47 home runs, 115 ribbies, 15 stolen bases. I don't know, like if he's going to return to that, but if we can even get like a quarter of that, where like he's somewhat fantasy sustainable, that's a steal of where he's going. I think he's going like free, like almost like your last pick of the draft because nobody wants to touch him with a 10-foot pole. So like
He is going 46 outfielder, pick 185 overall.
So that's like your like first bench player. Like I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's still pretty much free.
Yeah, it's free, especially for the upside. And what's the worst that happens? You could replace a bench player the first week of waiver wires. So like I'm going to take that chance on him, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do in spring training. It's going to be indicative of what we could see moving forward. So unfortunately, we might have to drive him up the draft board if he is killing that, and we're going to have to talk about it. But we'll get there.
Matt, do you say what you have him ranked in your? I have him ranked. I currently have Cody ranked at the 55 outfielder. I'm a little bit below ADP, just because as Matt mentioned, those last 3 seasons just have been putrid for him.
53
his
for me.
average. So we're pretty much in sync. The thing here, his average season over the last 3 years is 98 games, 47 runs, 14 bombs, 45 RBIs, 8 steals, and hitting 203. And the Cubs have potential to be a sneaky good team this year with all of the moves that they made, and hopefully Matt Mervis gets the call at some point. I'm just not taking that risk when, just some names that are going around him, like Oscar Gonzalez, Jeff McNeil. I'll take Mitch Haniger, Brandon Nimmo, over him. I'll take Harrison Bader and Lars Nootbaar and Joey Meneses over him, even Jock Peterson. It's just at that point in the draft, I think there's still so much value at outfield, as your number 3 or, like your 4th outfielder. I just don't know if I'm taking the shot on Mr. Cody Bellinger. But Matt, next up, we have somebody that we had to find time to talk about this guy in this podcast. We always joke around and say a case of the Mondesis, and that's Adalberto Mondesi. Oh, Lord. Right now, he is somebody that's also going for pretty much free 99 at the moment. I will go over his ADP in a second. But, Mondesi is coming back off of that ACL tear in his knee. The thing is that he's ramping up. He's doing baseball activities. He isn't expected to start the year with the Red Sox. But you know what? Maybe that fresh breath of air in, a new team. Maybe the expectations aren't so high on him, and he could say, hey, you know what? Let me just do what I can. Right now, Mondesi is coming off the board as the 24th shortstop, pick 235. And for me personally, I think that's just low enough that I'm finally turning the corner and I'll say, hey, you know what? Let me take the risk on him. I've done it in a couple of drafts already. And what's the worst thing that could happen, as Matt said with Cody? You just drop him and you go in another direction. But let's just go over Mondesi's upside real quick. Mondesi's upside, I want to say, is let's go back to the 2019 season where he played 102 games, 58 runs, 20 doubles, 10 triples, 9 bombs, 62 RBIs, 43 steals, and he had 263. So that's probably what you're looking at, something like that, maybe a middling batting average around 250, 260. The RBIs and the runs is really depending on where he hits in that Red Sox lineup. I don't think there's like a massive upside in that Red Sox lineup. The power isn't going to be there. But once again, we're drafting this guy for the steals. He's still only going to be 27 years old, in case anybody forgot. And before I pass the Mondesis on to my brother, I just want to
give me the
Mondesis at 22.
I don't want the case of the Mondesis, bro. I don't feel like being hurt in the hospital.
As we like to say, he's got his own wing named after him.
Yeah, several. Yeah. But yeah, let me take over here. Let me strap on my hospital gown and talk about Mondesi, and hopefully I don't get hurt in the process. And Alberto Mondesi, I guess at this point, you know, is just one of those people that, was always just been overdrafted. I mean, he's being drafted in the top 100, top 3 rounds, and like he just never panned out. The guy got hurt and like broke a phalange, broke this, broke that, and you're fed up with it. Now he's kind of like a reasonable price, and like I'll feel better about it, because what's the worst that happens? Right, he does get hurt, and the best case scenario is the best player in baseball. It's just a catch-22. I don't foresee the last part, but I definitely will draft it to see what would happen. He can be your last pick. But let's move on here, because I don't need to repeat what Dom said. Let's talk about Paul Sewald and Andres Munoz situation here. So after looking at these guys, you don't know who's going to have the closing job at the end of by the time the season rolls around. Paul Sewald had 20 saves last year, had a pretty good year. Outside when he had the opportunity. He had a 2.67 ERA, he had a 0.76 WHIP, he had 20 saves, and he got 64 innings in there and 5 wins to boot, which is pretty nice. Whereas Munoz really didn't have the opportunity. He did have 96 strikeouts. He did have a 2.49 ERA and a 0.89 WHIP, and with 2 wins. So he was more like a setup man, got some saves at the time. But I mean, he's younger, he's on a longer contract. These are the things you got to look at, right? So Munoz is 20 years old. He signed through 2025, whereas 24. I'm sorry. So the end of next year. Whereas Sewald, he signed through this year, and he's on a $4 million contract. So one of two things can happen. He's on a short leash because they want to see what Munoz is, see if he's the future, if they even give him the job to begin with. Or the worst case scenario is he is your closer. You drafted him because he got the job. Halfway through the season, he gets traded because he's on a short-term deal. They want to move in Munoz, and now he goes into a middle relief setup position, and then boom, you got no closer. So like these are the scenarios we got to look at to see how they use these guys in spring training. Are they going to say, hey, we're fully confident in Sewald, and we're going to give him the job, and we're just going to ride it out? He's our guy. Or, hey, there's going to be a committee, and you never want to hear committee, and it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, man, that's pretty straight on analysis. I'm just going to add my 2 cents, and then we'll wrap things up here for today. The thing with Sewald is he came into the job at the end of 2021 and did a monster. He did very well with the 3.06 ERA in 2021 for Sewald, 62 games, 11 saves, 64 innings, 104 Ks, and a 1.02 WHIP. And then the WHIP was even better last year at a 0.76, and 64 innings, 72 Ks last year, and a 2.67 ERA. So Sewald just knows what he's a vet. He's done it before. He's gotten a lot of saves over the last 2 years. But Munoz is just that flamethrower. He throws 100 miles an hour, a young kid. He's eager. He's ready. And he's also recovering off of foot surgery. I haven't really seen any updates of where he's at the moment. But Sewald is healthy and ready to go. So I think they might start the year with Sewald and transition Munoz. And as Matt said, Sewald might be a trade candidate come the middle of the season trade deadline type of ordeal. But I could see them keeping both of them there and just let maybe Sewald teach Munoz, and they get into that little mentoree type of situation. And Munoz takes the job maybe halfway through the year, and they leave Sewald as a setup man because they trust Sewald. Sewald is very good at what he does. So this is just something definitely to keep an eye on as spring training gets going, and you hear reports coming out of Seattle's camp of what they're planning to do with the back of their bullpen. And that's pretty much all I got there with them. But guys, that's keeping it nice and tight and quick for you guys today. That's all. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review, and also check out our website. Our website has our rankings, which are go by 5x5 category leagues, and they're also good for Roto. So, check those out. If you have any questions, you could always email us or DM us as well. We always get back to you guys as soon as possible. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. And if you like what we do, you need to go check out our pal Lindsay at Locked On MLB Prospects and make him your second listen each and every day. Lindsey Crosby was on our top 10 prospect episode, so go check that one out as well. Tomorrow, we will be talking about batters that are being drafted too early in your fantasy drafts. So maybe you avoid them, and, we'll let you know more about that tomorrow. But, guys, that's it for today. So until next time, see you.
Peace.